Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. Welcome to our 107th installment in the Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Vayeshev, a pact. Parsha speaks about the story of Yosef and his brothers, where he gets sold and ends up going down to Egypt, ends up in Potiphar's house, has a whole thing with his wife. Potiphar's wife ends up in jail. Story of Tamar and Yehuda. Right? There's a lot. There's a lot to speak about here. So the Torah says, beginning of the Parsha, chapter 37, Yaakov dwelt in the land in which his father had sojourned, in the land of Canaan. These were the generations of Yaakov. Yosef was 17 years old, feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. Yosef brought to his father their evil report. So here's the beginning of the story of Yosef. That the fact that Yosef is with the brothers, and he brings this evil report against his brothers. So comes along Mori Rebbe Rav Agon Moshe Moshlita, may be well, brings down in Chochmah V'das. He says, even though the Torah says clear that Yosef spoke badly against his brothers, nonetheless, and he's punished. All right, he's punished for speaking Lashon Hara. Nonetheless, he had intention for good, right? Even though he spoke badly against them, nonetheless, his intention was good. Because Rashi and Mishlei and Proverbs chapter 19, verse 7, Rashi explains the name of the Medrash that Yosef himself, right, returns his badly speaking against his brothers. And he said they're eating Aver min achai. They're eating a limb from a live animal. So certainly a Jew's not allowed to eat a limb from a live animal, even if they have the status of Noahides. Also forbidden for them to eat a limb from a live animal. But the Torah gives testimony on the fact that even though what happens, even though they kill this lamb, this goat, because it says that they shecht, they ritually slaughter this goat. So nonetheless, they were making fun of the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. Therefore, Yosef is sold as a slave. So you see, even though they were eating Aver min achai, right? The question if they had status of Jews or not. Nonetheless, even if they had status of non-Jews, still should be forbidden, as we mentioned. So nonetheless, over here, he's still doing it for their benefit. Not that, the Torah just says he's speaking. Seemingly, he gave a bad report, right? So that would seem that, he's got nothing better to do, and he's speaking badly to his father against his brother. Right? That's what it sounds like. But he's punished, right? Even though he had right intention, he's still punished somewhere. Every points out, someone who speaks Lashon Hara against his friend is punished as if he himself did this terrible thing, and he's punished with the same sin. That someone who speaks against his friend, is punished for what he says. Right? Whatever he says against his friend, he's going to be punished. Comes on the Chovos Levavos, duties of the heart, written by the Rebbeinu B'chaye. He says in Sharach Niyot, 9th chapter, in the gate of servitude, I guess, or being low, making yourself low, in that gate over there, that chapter over there, he writes that someone speaks Lashon Hara against his friend, so his merits go to the friend, and the sins of his friend are upon him. In other words, person speaks Lashon Hara, Reuven speaks Lashon Hara against Shimon. Shimon gets Ruvain's mitzvahs. Right? So says the Chovos Levavos. And this is a tremendous thing that should prevent us, should awaken us, to prevent us from speaking Lashon Hara. Why? Because if a person speaks badly against someone else, they get all your mitzvahs. And so a person has to be careful. Now the Chofetz Chaim, every year points out that the Chofetz Chaim, when he wrote his book of the laws of Lashon Hara, he says the Chofetz Chaim doesn't mention this point so much. In other words, in order to put fear into people speaking Lashon Hara, that they're going to get punished as if they did this worst thing and that all their merits are going to be lost. He doesn't mention that. Also, right? Also, Rav Moshe Snyder, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, my Rebbe's Rebbe, Rebbe of the Yeshiva Eitz Chaim in London, or Torah's Emes, I forget which one. He was head of that yeshiva, and he was a famous student of the Chofetz Chaim. So Rav Moshe Snyder asked the Chofetz Chaim, and he says, according to the Rambam, chapter 3, in the laws of repentance, that he says that someone who speaks Lashon Hara, the Rambam says over there, someone who speaks Lashon Hara is mentioning people over there that don't have a portion of the world to come. So he says one of the people that don't have a portion of the world to come is someone who speaks Lashon Hara. They are destroyed. They are cut off. They get a tremendous punishment, and their sin is forever. I mean, it seems like they just keep getting punished forever. Because it mentions there someone who's a heretic, different types of heretics, different types of people who don't believe in God or Torah, or they deny resurrection, or they deny that the Messiah is going to come, whatever the case is. Also, people who speak Lashon Hara. These are all people that won't have a portion of the world to come. So it says that the punishment, seemingly according to the Rambam, the punishment is someone who speaks Lashon Hara is such a terrible thing, they lose a portion of the world to come. Now, obviously, this is going to be about somebody who's a habitual speaker. They don't care. They just continually speak Lashon Hara against other people. Obviously, if they do tshuva, they repent properly, this doesn't apply. But someone who's a habitual speaker of Lashon Hara, what happens? They don't have a portion of the world to come. Comes along Rav Moshe Snyder. Rav Moshe Snyder asked the Chofetz Chaim, how come he didn't write this in the book? Right, he wrote a whole book on the laws of Shmiras HaLashon, on what you're not allowed to speak, etc., one against the other. So says Rav Moshe Snyder, so why don't you put it in there? Someone who speaks Lashon Hara, tell people that the punishment is so strong that they lose a portion of the world to come. So comes along the Chofetz Chaim. The Chofetz Chaim answers. He says that type of hitting someone so strong, he said that I wasn't willing to do. I wasn't, like that type of bomb, so to speak, I wasn't willing to, that I wasn't willing to throw. In other words, in a Hanami, that, according to the Rambam, you use your portion of the world to come. The Chofetz Chaim wasn't willing to put that in, even though that's true, right? He didn't want to throw like such a bomb in the book. So why not? Well, why wouldn't he want to have done that? To show how strong the Isser is, that it's forbidden to speak Lashon Hara. So Moshe Snyder said, what was his intention? That if he would explain, if he would make known that the punishment of speaking Lashon Hara is what? Is use your portion of the world to come. So, on our low level and the many sins that we do, right? Most people, not everybody, transgresses some level the transgression of Lashon Hara, speaking badly against others. If people would hear that their soul's going to get destroyed forever, then what would they do? Then they just wouldn't keep anything. Because if they're already going to lose the portion of the world to come, they can't help themselves. They speak badly against someone else. Nonetheless, they'll say they can't handle it. It's impossible. And if that's impossible, then they'll transgress other transgressions as well. So, that will mean that people will be very weak in observance. And this will, push them overboard. That they won't be able to do anything because they'll say, listen, if I lose my portion of the world to come speaking Lashon Hara, then what's the point of doing anything else? No point. So the Chofetz Chaim brought many sources to say that the punishment of speaking Lashon Hara is very, very stringent. Right? Even without mentioning what the Rambam says. So what do we see? First of all, we see the stringency of speaking Lashon Hara. If a person is a habitual speaker, they lose the portion of the world to come. Right? According to the Rambam, they could lose the portion of the world to come. Now, if the Chofetz Chaim would say that, then people are going to scoff at all the mitzvahs. Right? The rest of the mitzvahs they won't do. They'll say it's just too hard. Now, when the Chofetz Chaim wrote his book, the Chofetz Chaim did not say, you're not allowed to speak. The Chofetz Chaim said, you have to know how to speak. So, the laws of Lashon Hara are very complex. So, if a person, does speak Lashon Hara, there are a number of conditions that have to be met. Right? There are a lot of conditions that have to be met. So why is it, let's get to the nook and crannies over here. Why is it that people don't care what they say? That even in the Frum community, even in the Orthodox community, people, are lax in how they speak against others. Well, simply, maybe don't think what they're doing is wrong. Maybe they feel they're justified. They'll say, well, even if this person was here, I would say it. Right? That doesn't make it permissible. At the same time, they may not think they may think they're justified in saying it. They may think that since this is something everybody knows, right? Even if everybody knows it, I'm not allowed to repeat it. Right? I'm only allowed to repeat it under certain circumstances. If that's the case, what gives me the right to say anything? In this case. So, not only that, but if a person speaks against someone else, and they're speaking in the privacy of their own home, nobody hears them, nobody sees them, right? If they know kids are around, whatever, nobody hears them, nobody sees them, speaking against the other person, so why have I damaged anyone? Why is this person caused anyone damage? It's not going to affect his livelihood, not going to affect his relationship to his wife and his kids, all these different things, it's not going to affect anything. Right? If it's not going to affect anything, why do they do that? Second question is, what's the benefit that they get? Usually someone who transgresses, they have some benefit. Right? A person, eats a pepperoni pizza. He's got benefit. Right? If he does certain transgressions, he gets benefit from it. If a person speaks against someone else, where's the benefit? Right? What is the benefit over here? What is he gaining? What is he gaining by it? So, we'll answer things in order. Right? I don't want people taking me to that. Oh, you answered the second one, not the first one. Right? Don't take the first case. And the first case is, why aren't people careful? Right? Why do people think, or say better, why do they have, diarrhea of the mouth and they just keep talking about others? Everybody does it. It's the way of the world. Right? So if you ask most people, they'll say, what's the wrong? Everybody does it. Right? Obviously we hold it's forbidden. And this really gets into the second question of what benefit does a person get. We're not careful what we say. Right? That's for sure. We don't think, that even if we're saying something badly against someone else, it's not going to affect him. Right? It's definitely not going to affect him. But what does it do? It brings up a lot of hatred that a person may have against that person. And therefore, it's just going to like stir in. It's going to make you feel good. Right? It's going to make you feel good by putting someone else down. So that really answers the second question. See, I sort of snuck that in. Right? That answers the second question. Because what's the benefit? Right? What is the benefit? What's the benefit someone has by speaking Lashon Hara? The only benefit is, seemingly, what are you doing? You're putting that person down. So if a person puts someone else down, that means that you are trying to make yourself look better. That's essentially what it means. In order for me to look better, what do I have to do? I have to put you down. Right? We'll make fun, we'll scoff, we'll say things in order to make the other person look bad. So, tangibly speaking, that doesn't mean I have anything in my hand. A benefit is normally something, my body gets a benefit from, whatever it may be. But this is something that's like intangible. But you see, when someone, hears a juicy piece of information, or they speak, against someone else, it gives them something. You might say, well, it's nothing in my hand, it's not something that's tangible. It gives someone an uplift. The reason, unfortunately, is because what the person is doing is you're putting the other person down, at their expense, and you're making yourself look better. And again, it doesn't matter if it doesn't affect them. It doesn't matter. They're not going to lose parnasa, livelihood. They're not going to be looked down upon by their wife or their kids or whatever the case is. Maybe nothing negative at all will come out of it. But you see, it's still not a good thing. It's still not something, I should be a part of. Because it has a negative effect. It has a negative effect on the person. So even if, technically speaking, certain aspects of Lashon Hara might be permitted, Chofetz Chaim says it's still not a good idea. You gotta say, why be more stringent than what the law is? So very simple. Then the answer is, if a person does things, even if it's permitted, it still could be bad for you to do it. Now you might say, if it's permitted, what's the problem? Right? Even though something may be permitted, it can still have a negative effect, on a person. And it can continually have a negative effect and entrench itself as a bad character trait. That's what we're worried about. So, if you'd ask most people in the world, you mention different laws about Lashon Hara to them, Jew or non-Jew, they'll think you're out of your mind. Right? They'll think, what's the problem? Everybody does it. It's all over the news. It's all over the internet. That's all people do. They put others down. Right? But that's not a good thing. People can do it in a joking way, and the more joking you do it, the more you put someone down, the better off you are in the eyes of others. Right? That's how it works. People connive one against the other. They say negative things one against the other. And if someone says, you should be doing that, it's not good for the soul, they're like, what do you care? What's the problem? You have to toughen up. Don't be, as we say in Boston, don't be a wuss. Don't be a wimp over here. So, you have to have big shoulders. It's not a question over here of having big shoulders or not. Comments, a person could be, even if they're not so sensitive, people make comments in order that your guard should be down. Like, in other words, nothing that should be said, why should a person be offended? Why should anyone ever be offended? They'll say that, if you're speaking badly against someone else and you tell them to stop, and it's not good, and it's not this, they'll say, why are you so sensitive? Like, it's not affecting anyone, it's not hurting anyone. Right? The only person it's hurting, is yourself, the person who heard it, and the one you're speaking against. In all three instances, you're killing everybody. Right? You're killing yourself for saying it, the person listening to it, unless they don't believe it. And a person who hears the Lashon Hara is not allowed to believe it 100%. If it's about somebody that could potentially cause them damage, so you can't believe it 100%, but you're allowed to guard yourself against the person. And you're killing the other person who you're saying it against. So you kill 3 people in the process. And again, it doesn't matter if there's no effect on the person you're speaking about. Right? Totally irrelevant. The question is, am I allowed to say it or am I not allowed to say it? So this really gets to the heart, of what I'm doing in this world. If my goal is, as the Ramchal says in Path of the Just, if my goal is to be close to God, so anything that prevents me from being close to God, I have to get rid of. I have to flee like the plague, like fire, the Ramchal says. Because otherwise it's going to entrench into me a bad character trait. It's going to take me away. It's going to take me away from drawing close to God. So the Ramchal says anything that takes me away, I have to run away from. Anything that's good, that draws me closer, then that I run after. So in this case, even if everybody does it, even if it's the way of the world, it's still not good. It has a negative effect on the person himself. Because all you're doing is making fun of someone else, or you're putting them down, or you're saying things you shouldn't be saying. Again, it makes you feel good because you're stepping all over someone else. Right? That is the problem. So something like this, if we're around people that habitually speak Lashon Hara, so a person has to make an effort not to be around these type of people. Right? The Ramchal in Path of the Just says, you got to think about what you're doing. Just don't act. You got to think. You got to look into. You have to, a person, even though the evil inclination doesn't give us any rest, it never stops. So therefore, we don't have time to really think about what we say, what we do. But the Ramchal says that's what we have to do. We have to make the effort to do it. If you don't make the effort to do it, it's like a blind person walking in the dark, right? That's never going to go. It's never good. The problem is we act and we don't think, right? Most people just act. No one thinks, because he said if the Yetzer Hara gave us an opportunity to actually think and reflect, then we'd realize things that we do are wrong. And because they're wrong, we'll have charata, we'll have regret, we'll have remorse, and then we'll want to change. The Yetzer Hara doesn't want that. Right? Certainly the evil inclination is not interested. That a person have time to think. Just like what Pharaoh did in Egypt. Right? What did Pharaoh do? Pharaoh made the Jews' lives hard. Made their lives so miserable. And they worked them so hard. They didn't have a split second to think about anything. It's all about making more bricks and doing this and doing that. They didn't have 1 minute to think for themselves. Right? That's what the Yetzer Hara wants. Right? He wants us, to not only to fail, but he wants to put us in situations where we don't have time to think. Right? But that is what we're doing in this world. We are, whatever we're doing, our goal is to be closer to God. Period. Right? That is what we're supposed to be doing. So if that's the case, then, anything that helps us, we should do. We should run after. Anything that doesn't help us do that, goes against that, we should stay away. But if you're going to tell me the way of the world is everyone speaks Lashon Hara, a person works in a certain place, and people speak Lashon Hara, what are you supposed to do? Whether Jews or non-Jews, doesn't matter. What are you supposed to do? The one thing is try and steer the conversation away from it. Or leave. Leave the conversation. If you can't leave the conversation, try and steer the conversation a different way. If you can't do that, then whatever's being said, you have to say in your mind, I'm not believing this. Right? 100% I'm not believing it because, if you agree to it or you believe it, then that is called, it's called Lashon Hara. You transgress the prohibition of Lashon Hara. So it's never an easy thing. People could be speaking, you can't leave. You have to change the subject, they won't, right? Other people egg them on and keep going and whatever. It's a very difficult thing, I agree. But God is telling you, He's not telling you something you can't do. Right? If a person would go through conversations they have, during the day, every night, before they go to sleep, they get a chance to think about what they said and what they did. I think people would be pretty shocked what comes out of their mouth. What they said. Forget what they've done. Right? What they've done is probably more obvious. But what a person said, they may be quite shocked what has come out of their mouth. So even though it's so stringent, and a person can lose their portion of the world to come, most people say, "That's how I talk. This is what the world is." And they'll say, "Oh, so I have a smaller portion of the world to come." Well, according to this, you won't have any portion if you habitually do it. Now, that's probably most people, because most people are not aware of the laws of Lashon Hara, and even if they were, they wouldn't care. Right? The reason they wouldn't care, they'd say, pretty simple: everybody does this. It's the way of the world. It's not something I can stop. Finished. Right? Nothing. There's nothing I can do. Right? But that's not true. A person can control what comes out of their mouth. You don't always have to say something bad against someone else. And even if it's true, and even if everyone knows it, doesn't give me the right to repeat it. Right? People make that mistake. They hear it, even if it's true, even if it's been proven. I can say it whenever I want. That's why social media is so dangerous in many ways. Even if somebody, for instance, is speaking the praises of somebody in front of others, that you're not allowed to do, because what if someone doesn't like this person? This person is going to speak Lashon Hara, and it's because of you. Right? So that's why you can never flatter someone in the presence of others. Even if he's well liked by most people. If you do that, what's going to happen? Someone will come along, doesn't like them, will slaughter them. Right? Will start speaking Lashon Hara, and you caused it. So, as the Ramchal says, a person has to take care of their mouth. They have to think about what they say and about what they do. Because it can either draw me closer to God, or it can draw me further away. And, we live in a very, in a very difficult world. Because, here we're trying to observe something that, most people, even if you would tell them even some of the laws, they'll think you're a fruitcake. They'll think you're a whack job, because, they'll say, if everybody knows it, what's the problem? What should be the problem? Why should it be forbidden in any way? Right? To them, it won't make logical sense. This is why a non-Jew is not obligated, in the laws of Lashon Hara. Because it's not logical. Right? Many of the laws are not necessarily logical. That being said, is it a good thing for a non-Jew to do? If it's not forbidden for them, is it good for them? Right? So, when we're talking about character traits, even if it would be permissible according to the law, no one's going to say it's still a good thing to do. Because it affects the person in a negative way. It makes them feel good, at the expense of someone else. So even if that's not forbidden, that's not good. You're not building self-esteem in a correct way. In a healthy way. So that being the case, can't say for Noah it's going to be forbidden. Right? But, it's certainly not good. And there are many, many, many verses that a person transgresses by speaking Lashon Hara against someone else. Right? More than 30 verses. Right? 30 prohibitions, one shot. You speak about someone, let's say, in social media. Multiply that by infinity. Because millions of people have the potential to see it. And then, are you going to ask them for forgiveness? To say it's not true, I didn't mean it, this, that. How are you going to find everybody? It's impossible. Right? It's an impossibility. Very, very hard. So, best thing is never speak against someone else. So, even though the Chofetz Chaim said over here that speaking against someone else, true, the Rambam says you lose your portion of the world to come. But the Chofetz Chaim said so many severe things about speaking Lashon Hara, he didn't need to mention it. Right? That's what Mary wants to answer. Right? He didn't need to mention the fact that they lose the portion in the world to come. But isn't it fun? Isn't it fun to speak against others? It's fun. We enjoy it. Gives us, a certain level of self-esteem. Makes us feel good. But the issue is, you're feeling good at the expense of someone else. When you feel good at the expense of someone else, that's just a rotten thing to do. Because there's no tangible benefit. There's zero tangible benefit. And how many times have I heard, well, not so often, but, here, Rabbi Schneider explained that, people would hear speaking Lashon Hara, you lose your portion of the world to come, so they're going to be lax in other things also. So if someone, and we mentioned this before, I think it's important to mention it here, if someone has a bad experience, could be a legitimate bad experience, bad teacher, whatever, and a person says, well, I had a bad teacher, and that's what Judaism is, I'm not interested, right? That's an excuse. Could be, person had a bad teacher. So, if they had a bad experience, you got to deal with it. If you can't deal with it yourself, you have to get help, in order to deal with it. But if someone comes along and says, like I heard someone say many years ago, and I went to Cheder, and I went to Jewish school, the Rebbe hit me and this and that. And that's what Judaism is, I don't want any part of it. So I said, who says that's what Judaism is? Maybe he had a bad, maybe Rebbe had a bad day, or a few bad days, or whatever. Who's to say that, no one's saying he's doing the right thing. So, a person came back and said, yeah, if that's what Judaism is. I said, but it's not. So what did it do? It gave him an excuse to say, I don't have to have anything to do with Judaism, because this is what happened to me, and that's it. So we can make all kinds of excuses. All kinds of excuses why we don't do this, why don't we do that, or we throw off the yoke of keeping Torah based on bad experiences or whatever. Many people have it. Many people go through difficulties. But at the end of the day, the buck stops here. Meaning that you got to take responsibility. Just because things happen doesn't mean that you throw the whole system. Are there bad eggs in the system? Yeah. Can things get manipulated? Yeah. Is it right? No. But you have to deal with it. You have to live within, religious society. Even a person that had a bad experience. There are many people say, I had this bad experience, or this happened, or I had a learning disability, or something else. And they say, well, I don't have to do anything because I had this bad experience. Doesn't matter if you had a bad experience. Right? That's not representative of what Judaism is. It's just an excuse to say, because this happened, I don't have to do anything. There are a million things that could happen. Bad experience in school, difficulty in learning, you didn't get into the place where your other friends got into, bad self-esteem, bad friends, family problems. There are millions of problems, a person can come up against. And they're all legit. They're all 100% legit. But if a person says, I'm going to tune out, I'm going in a different direction because I had this bad experience, that's an excuse. We're not whitewashing what happened. right? So we don't want to be misquoted here. Not whitewashing it and saying, what the person did was right. Not, call a spade a spade. They did something wrong, it's wrong. Someone got humiliated, teacher humiliated them, killed them for life. That's legit. But at the same time, one person shouldn't have the power to ruin someone for life. A person should be able to get help to deal with it. Any number of things can happen. As I've heard many say, someone who's religious in this generation and continues to stay religious is pretty miraculous. I mean, every generation has their own evil inclination, whatever it may be. But we're living in a very, very difficult generation, to raise children. It's very hard. Because, normally we would say the power of the street is unbelievable. But see, you don't even need the power of the street to turn someone, in the wrong direction. All you need is in the palm of your hand, right? Or a laptop or whatever. You can bring, all that garbage right to your house, right to your phone. Yeah, so, a lot of things are much more dangerous today, I think, than in other generations. Not to say other generations were a picnic, right? Every generation has their own thing. But at the same time, it's hard. And again, regardless of most situations that will happen to a person, the fact they're going to say, I'm throwing off the yoke of heaven, I'm not going to keep mitzvahs, that's just an excuse. That's what it is. I'm not saying that it's 100%, we're whitewashing. We're not whitewashing anything. But it doesn't give someone the right to tune out. It just gives them an excuse why I don't have to do this because, I've heard many people say, give another example. They'll say that, these Orthodox Jews, they got caught doing, let's say they committed fraud, right? Let's just say, for argument's sake, they committed fraud. They say, well, I don't commit fraud. I don't do that. And these people are supposed to hold by the Torah and hold by mitzvahs, so I'm doing pretty good. I didn't do that, so I don't have to keep anything. It's also an excuse. Doesn't matter what people do. Matters what the good book says. What we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do. Nobody's perfect. Don't mix up Jews and Judaism. There's a lot of enticement in this world. And people can get caught up in different things and, can break the rules. Go against the law. They can justify it however they want, but, at the end of the day, they get caught. End up in jail. Yeah, it's a terrible thing. It's desecration of God's name. But see, that gives ammunition to people to use to say, I don't have to keep anything because I'm doing much better. I don't do that. I may do some other things, but I don't do that. It's an excuse. We're very good at justifying what we do. We're very good at making excuses. And even if they're legit, it doesn't matter. Bottom line is I have to own up for what either I've done or what maybe others have done to me. Right? And people have done other things to me, right? To a person. And you have difficulty dealing with it, then a person needs professional help. And getting professional help is okay. Just means you have difficulty dealing with it on your own. You need an outsider to help you to go through it. Well, life is rough all the way around. We've mentioned many times, nobody has anything easy. Even if their financial situation or whatever is easier, they have other issues. Everybody has issues. There's suffering, there's sickness, there's all kinds of things. But none should be so great that it pushes them over the edge. There are abusive situations which can do that. Right? The vast majority of people go astray is because of abusive situations. That may be true. But again, even for those things, people can get help for. Not across the board. Some people more successful, some people less successful. But everyone has their own trials and tribulations. See, we can't get in the habit of saying, oh, this happened, that happened, for whatever reason, even though God's the one pulling the strings. A person can say, well, this is what happened, poor me, and just wallow in self-pity forever. People do that also. Right? They just, they resort to things of, somehow coping, some coping mechanism, whatever they may be, but they don't function. Is that what God wants? No. So then why did he give you this situation? I don't know. Right? I'm not God. I didn't even play him on TV. I don't know. But that's what your soul had to go through. So, when God breathes in the soul of life to a person, everybody has spiritual DNA. Jews have what they have to do, non-Jews have what they have to do. But God gives us the ability to make decisions. Make good decisions, make bad decisions. Bottom line, you want to go in the right direction, you want help, God will help you. You want to go in the wrong direction, God won't stop you. Because we have free will, otherwise, we take away our free will. So, as the Ramchal said, I just want to hit on this point. The Ramchal said that, there's a disease that goes on for people. And that is, we don't think. We don't think into what we do. I think if we did, we'd be terrified. But, we don't think. We just act. Keep in mind on Yom Kippur, I speak about acting. On Yom Kippur, when you beat your chest, I sin for this, I sin for that. Most of the things, right? Take fist, chest, Vinu, Pashanu, Chatanu, Achet Chatanu, Lifanecho, I sin doing this, whatever. 95% of all the things you go on the list go through the confession on Yom Kippur. Most of the things that we beat our chest for are for things that we use our mouth for. It's a scary thing. That is a very scary thing. So, we got to be careful what we say. Don't just blurt out something when someone says something. Think about it. And think about a proper response, but doesn't mean you have to answer straight away. Because most times the person is going to answer. What's it going to be? It's going to be a knee-jerk reaction. And a knee-jerk reaction is not what we need. Because most likely it's going to come out of anger. A person should never act out of anger. So with all these things, what do we learn? You're going to say you got to learn how to speak. True. You got to think about what you do. True. And you can't make excuses. We can say, yeah, I did this, I did that. A person can have, remorse, etc. But you can't make excuses. You have to own up. Even if, terrible things have happened, you still have to own up. You still have to get it fixed, if possible. Because otherwise, people will make excuses and do all kinds of things and just say, I don't have to do anything because this is what happened. This is the hand that God dealt me. I mean, it's pretty morbid. Definitely sounds morbid. But people do it all the time. I wasn't born to do this. This happened. The other thing happened. Look at what my mother did to me. Look at what this teacher did. You fill in the blank. And I'm not saying any of these things are not legitimate. They may all be legitimate. The question is how we deal with it, how we let it affect us. That is the crucial point. And a person's going to get upstairs after 120 years, and you use these excuses on God. Say, no, I didn't keep the Torah because look what happened. This happened, that happened, the other thing happened. And God says, let me explain to you why it happened. And then they get a total clarity. They say, oh, now I understand. Let me go back. It's too late. we can't afford in this world to wallow in our difficulty without trying to move forward. Because like anything else, it's a test. And God tests us in many, many different ways. And a lot of times we fail. Okay? But a boxer gets knocked down, he gets up, gets knocked down again, he gets up. A righteous person, it says, gets up 7 times. Is that easy? Certainly not easy. But God doesn't put us in a situation we can't handle. He gives us the ability to handle it, gives us the ability to overcome, and what he wants is that whatever happens, however hard it is, whatever the situation is, don't make excuses. I want to remind people I have an intro to Kabbalah class. We are actually finishing the book of Derech Hashem, the Way of God. I'm actually going to finish it hopefully this week. Meets every Tuesday night, 9 o'clock, New York time. And either we're going to learn Duties of the Heart, which is a very hard book to go through, but I think very important book to go through. The Chovos Levavos, written by the Rabbeinu Bachaye, or the Ways of the Righteous, right? Those are probably the two choices, what we're going to go through. That means every Tuesday night, I have 2 question-answer sessions, one on Tuesday, 10 a.m. New York time, one on Thursday, 2 p.m. New York time. I also have a class, I don't do it live, there's a class on Path of the Just by the Ramchal, which I mentioned before. That's once a week. Anyone interested in that can contact me. I have classes for Noahides. Classes, those aren't live as well. Classes for conversion, those are live. I have a Sunday morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, Torah portion of the week class. We're actually starting the book of Leviticus. We're going to start this coming Sunday. So anyone interested in any of this, they can take a look at Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on Facebook. They can take a look at my blog, orthodoxconversion.com. And anyone who wants to contact me, send me an email, rabbichaimkoffen@gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFF, that's the way my father spelled it, COFFMAN @gmail.com. Wishing everyone a great Shabbos.